Lionel Messi, just soaking it all in, taking in the moment. Grown men, World Cup champions, some of the fiercest competitors alive. And they fall apart just hearing one man's name. Another breathtaking moment for Lionel Messi. People actually think Messi was handed everything. What a squad, brother. The real truth took 20 years. Look at Leo throwing his cleat in pure rage, sidelined by a muscle injury. Because this Argentina under Scaloni, 4 lost finals. And one night, he tried to quit for good. Everyone had their eyes on the victory, but they were too busy counting the sacrifice. If you only tuned in during 2022, you witnessed a coronation. You saw a man raise the World Cup in Qatar, and it felt easy to think, of course, it is Messi. It was always going to be Messi, but it was never guaranteed to be Messi. Go back to 2007, his first big final with Argentina, the Copa America. He was only 20 years old, the brightest hope his country had, and Brazil crushed them 3-0, while he stood frozen in the middle of the pitch, watching another team celebrate. Then came the 2010 World Cup, where Germany did not just beat Argentina, they absolutely dismantled them 4-0 and sent Messi packing without a single goal to his name. He was only 23, already the absolute best player on earth for his club, yet his own country claimed he shrank when it mattered most. Then came the night that scarred him, 2014, the World Cup final. Argentina against Germany once more. Messi stood minutes away from the only thing he had ever really wanted. Then Mario Götze scored in extra time, and it slipped away. Walking up to collect his runner-up medal, Messi walked right by the trophy, close enough to actually touch it, and he could not even bring himself to look. That night, they handed him the golden ball, the official trophy for the tournament's absolute best player, and he held it like it burned his hands, named the planet's absolute best, and still a loser where he wanted to win most. Then came the 2015 Copa America final, 0-0 against Chile, ending in brutal penalties and Argentina lost. Then, 2016, back in the Copa final again, facing Chile, and once more decided by penalties. Messi stepped up for his shot, the guy who never misses, and he blasted it over. Another title gone right off his boot. Standing alone in the center of the pitch, 29 years old, a guy who had just lost 4 straight finals, he completely broke down. Still wearing his kit, crying as he spoke, he said his time with Argentina was over. He walked away. This was no calculated move, it was not a show, just a broken man who gave everything he had, while an entire nation pointed fingers and blamed him for why they kept losing. They called him cold, said he did not feel the jersey. They said he would never be Maradona. They hung every loss squarely on his shoulders, as if he played all 11 positions on his own. In a land where soccer is a religion, he was the god they prayed to, and the guy they blamed at the same time. Then he did what nobody saw coming, he came back. Only to get knocked out of the 2018 World Cup by France in a chaotic 4-3 defeat, a match where he barely even touched the ball near goal. He returned and lost the 2019 Copa America semifinal to rivals Brazil. He kept returning, knowing the next failure would be blamed entirely on him, and nobody would share the pain, and yet he kept showing up. The critics who call it easy never lived through a second of it. Inborn talent does not take 15 years, and gifts do not emerge after 4 lost finals. Handout trophies do not make a grown man stand on the field and seriously consider walking away from the thing he loves most. He did not win because it was easy. He won because after every single heartbreak, somehow finding one more reason to come back. And the young boys who cry today at his name grew up watching every single one of those failures glued to their living room floors. One of those kids grew up just enough to write him a letter. A quick thanks to our sponsor, OK Jersey. If you want to add some high-quality kits to your collection, From 2026 kits to classic retros, they have you covered with prices from £15. Just use my promo code MAUS to score an 8% discount. The year is 2016. Messi just missed that penalty, lost the final, and quit. Somewhere in Argentina, a 15-year-old kid sits down to write him a message online, never dreaming anyone would read his words. The kid begs him to stay and apologizes on behalf of an entire nation that piled impossible pressure onto one man. He tells Messi to just play for fun, because when Messi has fun, the whole country has fun too. He says watching him wear the blue and white is the absolute greatest pride in the world. He signs off, "Thank you and please forgive us." That kid was Enzo Fernández. Back then, he was basically a nobody, just an academy kid who might never make it. He was not writing to a teammate, instead writing to the poster on his bedroom wall, the way any heartbroken 15-year-old fan would, because his hero had just declared he was done, and the kid just needed him to stay. Fast forward 6 years, that same kid is standing right next to Messi in Qatar, lifting the World Cup, while being named the best young player of the tournament. Whenever someone mentions that letter now, Enzo just laughs and says he was pretty young back then. But then he adds something that really hits home, explaining that if he wrote it today, one page would not be enough. Enzo Fernández, the letter. Honestly, it was so emotional. Well, I wrote it in my own words, just whatever came out in the moment. It turned out to be a really beautiful letter. After winning the World Cup, it really was incredible. I always dreamed of it, but never actually imagined it. These guys are not just teammates who happen to share a locker room. Rodrigo De Paul walks out right beside Messi before every single match, close enough to touch, like a bodyguard who gave himself the job without asking for a dime. Just watch any Argentina walk out and you will spot him half a step behind, eyes scanning, always right there. Cutie Romero, Julian Alvarez, Lautaro Martinez, they all grew up as fans. They copied his free kicks out on the street with their friends. For most of their lives, Lionel Messi was just a poster on their bedroom wall, not a real person in the same room. They learned how to play, watching him do things nobody else could, and then, one day, they got called up, and the poster was standing right across the training pitch, passing them the ball. Now they line up beside him, and every single one would rather break their own legs than watch that man walk off the field, crying by himself. In the summer of 2024, they came terrifyingly close to having to. Miami, July 14, 2024, the Copa America final, Argentina against Colombia. And Messi is chasing one more trophy with the group he loves. In the first half, he rolled his ankle, got back up, and kept playing. Then, in the 66th minute, on a play where absolutely nobody touched him, he collapsed again. This time, he could not go on. His foot planted awkwardly, and the ankle rolled again, a freak, non-contact injury in the biggest match of the summer. He pulled the captain's armband off his arm and handed it over to Angel Di Maria, who was playing his final game of his entire Argentina career. Then Messi hobbled to the bench, pulled off his shoe, looking down at an ankle already swollen to twice its normal size. The cameras caught him completely breaking down, face buried in his hands, sobbing on the bench. Everyone in the stadium suddenly feared this was the final game of his international career. Messi down so fast. Lionel screams. He was so fast. Naturally, the stadium screens never showed his tears, so for a few minutes the crowd had no idea their captain was falling apart on the sideline. Then the news spread through Hard Rock Stadium. That chant, Leo, 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 thousands of voices screaming the name of a man who couldn't play anymore. The players on the pitch saw it instantly. Flashing right there on the giant stadium screen, Rodrigo De Paul described that exact second later. Speaking on a stream, he said the whole team saw Messi crying, and something snapped inside them. They looked at each other and agreed. They were winning this game for him. We saw that painful image of him, and right then we said, you see, this is for him, 10 men and a promise. And in the 112th minute, Lautaro Martinez stabbed home the winner, and Argentina lifted the Copa America trophy as their captain watched from the bench, crying tears of pure joy this time. They didn't win despite losing it. They won because they saw him hurting, and they flat out refused to let that be his ending. There was another emotional goodbye hidden in that night. Angel Di Maria, wearing the captain's armband Messi had handed him, was playing the final match of his international career. Two legendary players who carried their country through a decade of heartbreak. One crying on the bench, another saying goodbye on the field. The kids won it for both of them. That kind of loyalty is not born on a night you win. It is born the night you lose everything. Someone stands up in the wreckage to speak for these men. That night happened years earlier inside a silent, defeated locker room. Speaking of those jerseys from earlier, OK Jersey is not just about cheap prices. They are the absolute gold standard with a 4.5 Trustpilot rating, and everything from 90s legends to the 2026 World Cup lineup is ready. Use my code MOUSE right now to get 8% off your entire order. July 3, 2019, Belo Horizonte, Brazil. Argentina had just lost the Copa America semifinal to the host nation 2-0. Another tournament wasted, another summer where Messi went home with nothing, back to a country ready to blame him for everything. Back then, the word on Messi was that he was cold, distant, a genius who did not have the fire to lead, a guy who would not even sing the national anthem. His own countrymen said it out loud on TV. Diego Maradona, the man he was constantly measured against, said Messi did not have the personality to lead this team. But when the door of that quiet locker room closed, the cold captain stood up and started to speak. Di Maria is the one who told everyone what happened behind those doors. He said Messi told them how proud he was of the group they had built, how a lot of them barely even knew each other, some just getting called up for the first time, and yet it felt like they had been playing together for years. He said they had all pulled in the exact same direction from day one, and he looked at the young guys and told them they had earned that jersey. They deserved to be right where they were. By the time Messi finished speaking, Di Maria said every single man in there was crying. Especially for those kids, this was no victory speech. They had just suffered defeat, heading home empty-handed once again. In almost every losing locker room, the captain, who typically gets blamed for absolutely everything, keeps his head down, refusing to say a word. Messi did the exact opposite. He stood tall in the wreckage of another failure and spoke to a room full of frightened, young athletes, telling them he was proud of them, that they belonged. He gave all the credit away. On the absolute worst night of that summer, that was the night his cold reputation finally vanished. Behind closed doors, most of the nation still saw a silent figure who simply did not celebrate enough. His teammates saw a completely different man. They saw a leader who, on their absolute worst night, chose to lift a locker room full of kids instead of shielding himself. And when a teammate does that for you, once he stands in the dark to pull you up, instead of pointing fingers, everything changes forever. You can never watch him suffer alone again and just stand there. His pain becomes your own, and his burden becomes yours to carry. The trouble is, some of that weight they could never lift, simply because some of it he absolutely refused to hand over. 2 years after that speech, those kids won the 2021 Copa America, where Messi finally lifted a trophy for Argentina, sobbing into it. Then the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, the iconic coronation you already know. And now, during this tournament, they have transformed into a squad that only wins the hard way. That brings us straight to the round of 16, the clash right before England, July 7th, 2026. Atlanta again, Argentina facing Egypt. This entire tournament had already become a series of near-death escapes. A tiny island country called Cape Verde had pushed them into extra time. Later, a short-handed Switzerland did too, but Egypt was the team that almost ended everything. For most of that night, Lionel Messi was trailing badly. He missed the penalty. That was his second missed spot kick this tournament. No one in World Cup history had ever missed two in one tournament. Then he got bullied off the ball, caught flat-footed, overhitting every pass. When Egypt scored their second in the 67th minute, Argentina's title defense had about 20 minutes to live. 80,000 shocked fans in Atlanta sat there, watching the end arrive. But in the 79th, Romero headed in a Messi cross. 4 minutes later, Messi blasted the equalizer home himself. Then in stoppage time, Enzo rose to head the winner. 3-2. From dead and buried to moving on, all in the span of a coffee break. Messi collapsed onto the grass in the center circle, face buried in his hands, his shoulders heaving. These were not the clean tears of a victorious champ. This was ugly, doubled over, sobbing on the pitch, the kind of raw emotion you cannot fake. He said later it was just a massive release. All the pressure of the night, escaping his body at once, that relief was tangled up with how angry he still felt over that missed penalty kick. He scored the goal that rescued his country, yet a part of him remained furious with himself. Moments later, a mic caught Enzo still in his jersey, and he could barely get the words out. He called Messi their ultimate role model, then had to stop and apologize for breaking down on live television right there on the grass. Lautaro had already reached him. He embraced his captain, telling Messi to enjoy this moment, because he truly earned it. Then, Lautaro uttered the words that the whole squad carries in their bones. They would bleed for each other, sure, but even more for Messi in his final World Cup. He has already given this squad so much. Even their manager could not fight back tears. Lionel Scaloni, the mastermind who built this team around Messi, stood there wiping at his eyes, sobbing right next to his captain, before joking afterward. His teammates tease him for it as the first guy to break down. The man with more World Cup goals than almost anyone alive left the pitch, feeling like he had nearly let them down. That is the heavy burden they watch him carry. Just a few weeks before this, they saw him carry an even bigger weight, something that had absolutely nothing to do with soccer. That is all for now. Make sure to check out OK Jersey through the link below, offering rapid shipping and top quality for only £15. It is the perfect way to build your collection without overspending, so grab your piece of soccer history today. June 16, 2026, in Kansas City. Argentina's very first match of this World Cup against Algeria. Messi's family sits in the stands, his wife and his 3 boys, watching him perform in what everyone knows is his last tournament. He finds the net within minutes, but instead of celebrating, he pulls the front of his sweat-soaked jersey up over his face to wipe away tears, right there on the pitch before the match has even settled. He goes on to score all 3 in a 3-0 victory, his first ever World Cup hat trick at 38 years old, which ties him with Miroslav Klose for the most goals in the history of the men's tournament. Enzo said afterward, "It is like time can never catch him." Alexis Mac Allister believed the night proved the entire squad must be built around Messi, because when he is happy, he scores. When a reporter mentioned the record, Messi just shrugged it off. He said sharing space with names like that was an honor, but he did not think it mattered much. His mind was clearly somewhere else. When they asked about those tears, Messi did not give them a soccer answer. He said it had nothing to do with the sport. He admitted he had been through some dark, heavy days, but he wouldn't say what they were. And to this day, he still hasn't. Instead, he just thanked the entire staff and thanked his squad because they'd stood by his side the whole time, giving him the strength to survive it. We are talking about the biggest athlete on earth, a guy who has lifted the World Cup, the Copa America, and 8 Ballon d'Ors, every single trophy imaginable. Yet in his darkest private moments off the pitch, away from the cameras, the force that saved him was a squad of younger guys who once grew up idolizing him, standing watch so he wouldn't break down alone. And that right there tells the whole story. For 2 decades, Argentina handed Messi its heartbreak and let him carry the load so they wouldn't have to feel that crushing weight themselves. Every lost final, every bitter insult, with talk show pundits shouting that he'd never match Maradona. Each flight back home seen as a failure by 45 million people, only to fly back and try again. He absorbed the blow every time, just so his nation could keep dreaming, and no one forced his hand. Retirement back in 2016 was an easy option. He could have coasted as the greatest club player to ever live and let his country go, but he kept coming back to the exact place that broke him most until he finally dragged them over the finish line. His teammates are the only ones who witnessed that heavy toll up close, so when he finally breaks down, to them, he isn't just a superstar crying. They see the man who carried them all for years, finally letting someone else carry him. That kind of loyalty changes a locker room. These guys would run through fire for each other, and they still can't watch a single teammate cry without tearing up too, because every single one of them owes him that same massive debt. He stood by them in their darkest nights, assuring them that they belonged. For 20 long years, he led them onto the pitch, taking every single blow meant for the team. He took a locker room packed with terrified young boys and made them world champions, never once asking for the credit. An entire generation of players now exists in Argentina who only made it because a 15-year-old fan grew up to play beside the hero on his bedroom wall. Lifting trophies with him was just a bonus. He literally raised them out on that pitch. So, when the crushing weight finally shows on his face, it cracks open something deep inside every one of them. In the kid who wrote him that letter, in the protector standing at his shoulder, in the striker who told him to enjoy his final run, and in the manager who calls himself the team crybaby because they know exactly what it cost. They watched 15 years of brutal defeats pile up, watched him walk away and then return, watched a nation brand him as heartless and cold, even as he kept them all united. And they know no stack of silverware could ever wash that away. His tears now are made of every single year he spent holding them back. They are not weeping for a mere athlete. They are crying for the leader who carried them, finally letting himself be carried. In the fleeting moments they still have left to do it. They weep because he finally lets them. 20 years he carried this nation, and now his brothers get to carry him across the line. This Sunday at 39, he plays his last World Cup final. This was never just a game, it was the greatest love story this country ever wrote. If this touched you, leave a like, subscribe, and stay with us. The big final is next.